Hi, my name is Courtney Edman, and I am excited to talk with you in this series of videos about executive function coaching and how executive function coaching promotes effective communication and planning for people of all ages. So I am an executive function coach. However, beyond that, I like to call myself a strengths-based coach for people who are neurodivergent, which can mean that someone may have ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dysgraphia, and effectively people who think differently, perceive the world differently, and may have challenges with executive function skills, which makes it a little bit more challenging for them to achieve the goals that they may have for themselves in life. And so I like to support people of all ages in empowering them to achieve the goals that they have in life, and working with parents as partners as well as other people as partners for the same purpose. And throughout this series of videos, we're going to talk about a variety of different things and take you along the journey about the different roles that team players have, what executive function skills are, what an executive function coach is, and what it might look like if someone has executive function skill challenges. All right, so what can parents do? That's the magical question, and probably the reason that you're all watching this, right? What can I do as a parent? What can other professionals do to support executive function skill development? Well, I'm here to tell you there's a lot that can be done. And I'm also, I shared the challenges, the conversation that I had with my son, and the fact that for 17 years, I had no idea how to support him. And I sought professional after professional to try to help me. And everybody kept saying, well, just create a reward chart, create a box and have prizes for him when he meets the expectations. Well, I'm telling you, none of that worked. And I really just longed to find what could work. And we had a really challenging journey in our relationship along the way. But when I discovered what can be done and what is the right approach, our relationship has healed. And he really understands that I'm here as a support, as his number one fan, and he is allowing me to be his coach now. So the approach works, and it takes time. It's been 4 years since I've implemented these newly discovered strategies and this other way of seeing behavior. And it took time for him, of course, to heal, and for me to learn the skill and to garner the patience and my own self-regulation and remembrance that this is a skill-based challenge that he has. But with time, intention, and not giving up on one another, it's possible to maintain that amazing connection that is so necessary and so wanted by both the kid and the parent to be partners in life. So yeah, it's a success story, and it works. And there's a huge community of people who do know how to support people with executive function skill challenges and delays. There's a lot of people in the community that's related to the word twice exceptional, which is simply means that people who have high academic ability or who are gifted and who have executive function challenges or other lagging skills that impact their ability to achieve at that academic level. It's that performance gap. So there's one exception and a second exception, exceptionality, and so that's why it's called twice exceptional. And so you can Google that word and you will be brought to a number of resources. There is Mona Delahook is a phenomenal resource, and there are many, many others, and I'll probably be able to share a list of resources at the end of the second part of this video. This is going to be a 2-part video. So I'll share some resources with you, but I encourage you to visit Debbie Raber and her book, Differently Wired, Mona Delahook, and her website and book, Beyond Behaviors. And And then there's another phenomenal book called The Whole Brain Child by Dr. Dan Siegel and Dr. Tina Payne Bryson, who I think all three of those books are great places to start if you are interested in learning more about this approach. Let's see. Okay, so what can parents do? Well, you could go to those resources as a first step. I also have a YouTube channel that you can go to, and I also have a podcast where you can learn a little bit more. The podcast is called See Me, SEEME, and it's on Spotify. And my YouTube channel is at totametheshame.com on YouTube, or To Tame the Shame on YouTube. So there are all kinds of resources out there if you Google executive function skills. And there's also an inattentive, a coalition for inattentive ADHD has a lot of resources on their website, free resources as well. And there's a website magazine that has a lot of articles in it called Attitude, ADDITUDE. So like I mentioned, I had no idea that all of these resources existed. And when I discovered the term twice exceptional on a neuropsychological report for my son when he was 17, it opened up this world of wonderful things and strategies that were not seeing his behavior as through the behavioral lens. And I'm so grateful and I'm happy to share these free resources with you. So what else can we do, though, in our own homes, even before accessing all of those resources? And the thing that I advocate for the most, and I use this term in my coaching, is to be compassionately curious and collaborative. And when I talk about that, what does that mean? It means that first and foremost, we check our own emotions when our kids or someone that we know and love is not doing what we expect them to do. They're not meeting that expectation. And we check our own disappointment, frustration, irritation, and come to them with compassion because maybe they can't meet that expectation and they themselves are frustrated with themselves. And we come to them with compassion, and I incorporate and we get curious. And that curiosity and the way in which we express that curiosity is informed by two techniques of communication. One is motivational interviewing techniques and the OARS method, OARS, and collaborative proactive solutions by Dr. Ross Greene. And in particular, his Plan B approach. And let me get into that really a little bit more in depth here. So we come at it with, the first step is to check our own triggers and emotions so that we can respond with compassion, because they themselves might be really frustrated and irritated with themselves, or ashamed or disappointed, right? All the emotions, angry. We come and we connect first with compassion. And then we say, as Dr. Ross Greene says in his Plan B approach, we open with empathy. And we say, gosh, it looks like you're really frustrated. What's up? And that word, that question, what's up, can be really powerful. And so I want to talk first. I'm kind of like going all around, I know, but compassion and connection first. The second step is important to be an open-ended question. So often we as adults and highly capable, problem-solving, wise, knowledgeable adults jump first to direction, to telling people what to do. If you only got your homework done, it'd be much easier. Then you could go play. But that directive approach doesn't work with kids that have executive function challenges and have all these emotions that are swirling. They would do that. They would follow that direction if they could, and they haven't yet, so they're not going to, no matter what you tell them to do. What has to happen first is we have to start asking them questions and getting curious. And so let me give you an overlay of the OARS approach. So OARS is an acronym. O is open-ended questions. A is affirmations. R is reflective listening. And S is summarizing. And the reason I share those first is because the open-ended questions are one of the most important skills that you can learn to help a child that has executive function skill challenges. Because those open-ended questions that you're going to use, and they are only what, when, where, and how questions. Do not use why questions, because that can be a trigger for them to go off emotionally, even more so than what they already are. So what, when, where, and how questions. Why are those so critical? Because those are what are going to help them start to think about what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, where they're going to do it, and how they're going to get it done. And those are the questions we need to answer to have goal-directed behavior. So when they can start to think in those terms and answer those questions, they are developing executive function skills on their own rather than being told what to do, which is really la, 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 what they hear. So when they have to stop and think and answer those questions, distinct one at a time questions, they are developing executive function skills. But hopefully they can then continue to transfer into new situations. Open-ended questions, what, when, where, how. Affirmations. Those are things like what I just mentioned a while ago, like, hey, it looks like you're really frustrated. Or if they say like, gosh, I'm so frustrated, don't listen. So we can reflect back to them. We can affirm what they're feeling. Gosh, you're really frustrated. We can reflect back to them to help them understand that we're listening by saying, wow, you don't feel like I listened to you. So really it's taking what they say, affirming their experience, and then reflecting back to them what they're saying. And those two pieces are super critical for people who are just feeling unsuccessful, who are feeling like, gosh, I just want to meet some expectations and I'm really frustrated right now, or who are in an emotional experience, right? So we're really reaching out and connecting with them compassionately by using those affirmations and reflective listening techniques and by asking open-ended questions. The summarizing in the OARS method is really meant kind of towards the end of this collaborative process. And so let's hang on to the O, A, and the R to begin with as we integrate it into Dr. Ross Green's collaborative proactive solutions. So he talks about having this empathy step, and then that's step one. And that's where you're going to use your affirmations, maybe some reflective listening, and then an open-ended question, which can be as simple as what's up. And then the second step that he talks about. So really that's where you get curious, right? So you're connecting, you're compassionate, and then you're asking this open-ended question to be curious. The second step that Dr. Ross Green talks about is naming the adult concern, right? So after you have asked the what's up and they share with you what's going on, or they may say, I have no idea, you can say, well, what I'm noticing is that you're not completing your homework. And then be silent and just name what you're noticing to see what they might say. In that pregnant pause where we don't talk, where we're not directive, where we're not naming what we see, provides a space for them to start to think and provides a space for them to fill that space with their thoughts, their concerns, their emotions. And from there, we can continue to have a conversation that names that affirms in other ways, that invites more curiosity. And we stay in that compassionate curiosity frame of mind to get more information from them. And once we have a better understanding of what is going on with them, we can then go into, well, I understand that it's, that you forget to put your pajamas on and brush your teeth and get in bed. But the thing is, and this is where you as the parent can claim, the authority and name the expectations that you have. So you're not being a permissive parent. You're being a relational parent. You're being authoritative parent, right? You're saying, well, in our house, it's important to get a good night's sleep. It's important to have good mouth hygiene. And it's important for us to listen to one another. So My concern is that I don't feel like you're hearing what I'm saying. And I want to make sure that you have clean teeth and get a good night's sleep. And so then you've named that, and then you go into the invitation step. And this is like a really powerful shift in what we as parents, how we as parents typically approach our kids. We say, so if what I hear you say is that you forget what I tell you to do, and what I'm saying is all of these things it's important to brush your teeth, and it's important to get a good night's sleep, and it's important for us to listen to one another. What do you think we should do so that you remember all of these things? And let it be another pregnant pause. So we're inviting them to come up with the solution. Because if their mind thinks differently than ours does, they may have a solution that we may not have thought about, and we haven't given them the space to tell us what their idea might be. But we also may have not given them the space to even think about what a solution might be, to problem solve and think through that process. And so then we can use back and forth conversation of those ORS approach of the open-ended questions, affirmations, reflective listening, naming the concern, and you can go back and forth, because maybe they say, well, I can't remember, maybe you need to come with me. You can say, and maybe that is the first step, truly. And we may need to, give up the fact that we want to do the dishes while they're getting ready for bed. But if they need our one-on-one support to develop that skill, it may take 5 days for us to do that. And then they've learned it, and then we can go back. So no matter what their age is, it's really looking at what their skill ability is, what their readiness level is for independence, what their need is, and then helping give that to them, meeting them where they are, regardless of their chronological age, so that they can learn the skill. We do it with toddlers all the time, right? But when they start to get into upper elementary, middle, and certainly high school and college, we forget that they might need that support one-on-one. And so it could be that we walk them through it. It could be that you come up with a win-win solution of like, well, maybe we can take pictures of you doing it. We create a checklist. And sometimes before we give them an idea, we have to say to them, well, are you open to me making some suggestions? Or if they say, going back to, well, I need you to come do it with me. You could say, well, I understand that you want me to do it with you, but I have to help your baby sister while you're going to do that. So if I'm having to help your baby sister and you need to brush your teeth and put your pajamas on and get in bed, what are your ideas around how I can take care of your baby sister and you do what you need to do? And just see what they have to say. And you can continue to have that back and forth problem solving collaboratively, or as Ross Green says, collaborative practice solutions. So you're problem solving together in a collaborative, affirming, compassionate, curious way to get to a win-win situation, right? And so there are a host of other strategies and techniques that can be used, including calendaring and making visual the way that we spend time, whether it's through a written calendar, through Google Calendar, through a number of other apps like Trello, or I'm trying to think of Timekeep. There are a variety of other apps that are out there that help us create a visual representation of how we spend time. There's, alarms that we can set. There's the Reminders app, a variety of ways to help us understand how we use time and remind us to get started. And then there are things like getting a good night's sleep, having solid nutrition, exercising. Exercising produces dopamine and helps us with our focus, helps us with our attention, helps us with a mindset that allows us to access our frontal lobe and keep our emotions kind of in check and not flip the lid, right? When the emotions become stronger than our executive function skills. And so there are a lot of things that we can do as parents to support, but I always recommend to start with compassionate curiosity and the ORS approach and the motivational interviewing techniques with collaborative practice solutions as a first step. And then we can get creative in our ways of helping them create visual representations of their lives, help them getting started. There's a Pomodoro technique you can Google that has people working in short bursts and taking a break, and short bursts and taking a break, just to help people get started over the hump. So I hope this has been helpful as a start to understand and demystify what the buzzword of executive function skills, which we're hearing out there a lot, and what neurodivergence is, and how we as parents or how we as professionals can support our kids, our colleagues, our family members in developing executive function skills, recognizing when it might be an executive function lagging skill that's getting in the way of meeting expectations rather than an intentional, willful, disrespectful behavior, because it's an important shift in the way that we approach people. And there are more and more health professionals and mental health professionals and teachers and administrators who are, and coaches like myself, parent coaches, executive function coaches, who are trying to spread the word that there is a different way other than the traditional behavioral approach when we are supporting people to be their best selves. And as I like to say, share their gifts with the world. So thank you for joining me today. And I look forward to continuing the conversation and sharing more with you as it relates to executive function skills and how we can help others. And if you're interested in more information about executive functions, about executive function coaching, and about, being a parent of a child who's neurodivergent, I invite you to check out my website as well as my podcast, which you can find on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, called See Me, Real Talk, Real Solutions, Navigating the Journey of Neurodiversity at Home, School, and Work and in Life. And that is with host Patty Lubold, who is also a parent of a neurodivergent child. So I invite you to check out those resources. There's also a YouTube channel that I have, which has a couple of videos on it, which might be helpful for you if you are interested. And it's To Tame the Shame. You can Google that on YouTube. You should be able to find those resources there also. And of course, the Chris Walsh Center continues to have more and more resources for parents with neurodivergent children, and definitely continue to follow them and check out the resources that they continue to make available to parents in the community. Thank you.